anybody else might show up, whether they do or not. So here we go. We are recording. Oh, golly. Hold on a minute. Let me open up a screen here. This is interesting content. This is the next to the last. There is one more live session after tonight. It will be next week, will be the last live session. So let's see, share screen. That's always a good thing to do. So here we go. All right. So do you have that? There, this is one more. Should say there is, not this is. We'll fix that. Well, maybe. Here. There it is. Okay, so we fixed it. There's one more live session after the next one. Several different very exciting topics here. Think about the year 2017. Entry-level jobs, the best entry-level jobs. If you'll remember, some of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago were scientist and engineer and data handling and data processing. So look where these are. These were the top 10 entry-level jobs. Engineer, right? Software, training, architect. Wow, engineering. So the best entry-level jobs. Okay, thought that was exciting to see that. If you're thinking about starting a new career, that might be the career to start. How about the worst? This was another one. The worst entry-level jobs. Holy cow. Starting at welder down to a sheet metal mechanic. See anything in common with these? Looks like they're all things that people are working at. These are all trades, right, and crafts, and these are all skilled laborers. That's interesting. All I know is whenever we ask for the plumber to come over, he seems to make a lot more an hour than I do. But that's the way that one goes. And when my next door neighbor is a welder, and he has 5 or 6 trucks parked at his house all the time, so it must not be that bad, right? Okay, but these were the worst in their entry-level jobs. I mean, if you're skilled, you're not entry-level, right? So that's something to think about. Back on cyber warfare for just a minute, and if you have something to say, Vicki, go right ahead. Anyway, if you've seen the movie, something like A Beautiful Mind, I think that was the title of the movie. It was about John Nash, a mathematician. And Dr. Nash invented or very, very much pressed the development of game theory, right? Game theory is how do systems built of people and organizations work together. It's game theory. For example, if someone is going to pretend that, let's imagine that one country were to go to war against another country, that sort of thing, and you would say, well, how will everybody all react? That's a game theory analysis. So he established this thing called the Nash equilibrium. Wow. All that means is that when everyone in the game, everyone in the particular set of relationships, when no one can improve their situation by changing their strategy, then there's an equilibrium. It means everything is stuck the way that it is. And you go, well, how often does that happen? Well, you think about this. Anytime there is and that's why they call it a game changer, right? Then situations change. But that applies to cybersecurity as well. That Nash equilibrium. So when someone gets better and someone gets better and they're keeping sort of pretty much the same technology and pretty much the same type of game, then you do not really improve yourself. That's scary. But they say that applies to cybersecurity. So here's one of the things they talked about. Let's say somebody did attack an organization, or they did whatever they did to it, you have to decide at some point it's actually better to say nothing about it, really. And at other points, it might be a good thing to say, well, they did this and we're going to blame you. Why? Because you're going to do something about it. But if you're really not capable of doing anything about it, what do you want? You're going to say, oh, they attacked us, they did this bad thing, and then you think someone else is going to come around and do something bad to them? Not going to happen, right? Really. Because here are the rest of these four conditions that have to do not just with cyber warfare, but technology as well. In other words, what do you do? How do you decide what to do? And in the next week or so, we've already started talking about cyber warfare and cyber attacks and that sort of thing, right? So whether you decide to blame and punish or ignore, sometimes it is a sign of weakness, other times it is a sign of strength. Why? It depends on how vulnerable the bad person is, right? Can you do anything to them? Maybe not, maybe. How knowledgeable are you? Do you even know the extent of the damage? Right? Then what will you receive? What payoff? What, not just compensation, but what sort of, if you're looking for somebody to go, ooh, wow, you did that. All right, well, that might be a payoff from retaliating against them. And then again, maybe not. It depends. And here's the real kicker. What each player in the game believes about the other. They might think that you know more than you do. They might think that you know less than you do. You might think the same way about them. So it depends on what players believe. And what they believe is a direct result of what? Of these vulnerabilities of the knowledge and what they may or may not decide to do about it. Okay?
Kind of like playing poker.
Worse than playing poker. This is high world stakes here. For example, we read a couple weeks ago, quote, the U.S. blew up a North Korean rocket shortly after it launched due to a cyber attack, right? We read that. Yeah. But if you listen to North Korea, they would have said something about, they did not say anything about that. They have since launched 3 more missiles, at least, maybe 4, with nothing happening to them. So why did they do what they did? Why did we do what we did? Did we really do what somebody said we did? Unless you're actually there, you have no way of knowing. And trust me, I have been there. I worked at places that did this kind of behavior, and I cannot even tell you where I was, and I cannot tell you whether it was successful or not, and I cannot tell you whether they thought it was successful or not, because they never really knew. How does that make you feel? Wow, huh? All I know is that it might have happened. Okay, so it's kind of fun, but when you go back, you can go back to Dr. Nash's game theory. It's really, really interesting things to look at, and it goes through all kinds of math, and just forget the math, just tell me, right? And you can find people that will tell you. Unfortunately, I am not familiar with game theory too much beyond what I already told you. And I watched the movie, so I know he was a really smart person. Okay, moving on from game theory, cyber warfare, and we're going to keep coming back to security because I receive security things daily. If you have anything to subscribe to, subscribe to Tech Republic if you're not already there, and ZDNet if you're not already there. Go ahead and subscribe to it if you can. Tell them you work for somebody and they have 1,000 employees or something like that. And they'll let you go in and get some of their papers. So anyway, here, big trends, the cloud, right? And everybody hears the word the cloud and they get all excited. Well, too often management decisions based on buzzwords actually produce very, very small results. And so you have technology people pushing, yes, let's do the cloud. Let's use cloud, blah, blah, blah. And yet you'll have managers that really they don't have a clue. That's one of the reasons that we have the MIS class here, so that all of you, because everybody in the class is going to eventually move further up into management, so you have some idea what's really going on. Find a real reason that it will help you if you want to use it. If you want to use anything in management, find the real reason. I know it's very, very frustrating sometimes, because you'll hear all of these managers running around using some word like enterprise, right? It's an enterprise this and an enterprise that. Holy moly. We wanted to throw erasers at the guys that were delivering the presentations. We had one person that came in and we had bets going as to how many times he would use a buzzword in his presentation, and the loser had to buy pizza for everybody else. Okay? Do not get stuck on management buzzwords. Get stuck on the value that whatever that word has can contribute for your organization. Extract the value, not the word. Of course, if you're dealing with some managers, then you'll have to do things. We used to do this. One of our managers, we would talk to him on Monday, and we would tell him all of the solutions that we had, right, on Monday. And it would be completely unrelated to anything that we were doing. We're just telling him solutions. And then on Thursday, we would ask him the questions to which the answers we had given him on Monday. And on Friday, he would have an epiphany. And on the next Monday, he would implement the policies that we wanted, because it would deliver to us the value that we had already decided on. And he went away happy, and we smiled. Okay? We really did that. And so you have to understand who you're working with. So you want to beware the buzzword, but find the real reason and use that. And you have to stay security conscious for a couple reasons. And I think we talked about security fatigue a week or so ago. And it's like this. If I know a lot about security, then obviously no one is going to target my computer because I know a lot about security. Baloney. They do not know you. All they know is that there's a computer there connected to something, and they want to do something to it. They have no idea what you are or what you do. There's your, then when they get into your computer, they might find out, right? But that's called security fatigue. And what happens a lot of times, and we did talk about this earlier, was that the security personnel themselves become so frustrated with their own processes and procedures that they shortcut them and bypass them, and therefore open themselves up for attack. So do not do that, really. Bad idea. Okay? So stay security conscious. That's the cloud. One of the other things that we talked about before on the cloud was that it's the part of the Internet of Things, and the Internet of Things is inherently unsecure. Just is. Okay, so moving to the next one. Literally, and this I read in some of the documents, organizations that use the cloud. You remember I talked last week about security by anonymity, right?
Right.
Yeah, well, they really do that. They go, oh, and they go, cover my eyes, cross my fingers, and maybe nobody will know. They really, really do that. And when they do that, they're doing the same thing to their reliability and availability. So what happens if security does bad things, something happens to your system, now your reliability, availability, performance, everything goes poop, right? So do not cross your fingers on security. What you can deliver from the cloud, and this is its big strength here, maximum accessibility. But as we've already noticed, the same thing about, remember the downloading, streaming video? You have to have a bandwidth and a system that supports it. Around here, and I'm up in the foothills of the mountains in North Carolina, we have people that have no internet. One of them, the only way he can get internet is if he hooks it up to his phone and uses his cell phone to get on the internet. You go,
Yeah,
wow.
my neighbors don't have internet and
Yeah.
they don't have cell phone signal at their house.
And you go, wow. So what do? We had, when we moved into this house about, 12 or 13 or 14 years ago, we were one of the first people in the area that joined what's not a T1 line. It's just a high speed line. And then once they put it in, they didn't connect anybody else anywhere. Well, fortunately, we have it. Otherwise, if we had moved in 2 years later, we would not have internet unless I managed to put a satellite up or something like that. So other strengths of the cloud, because it can back up and auto back up. And as we talked about those different RAID designs, we talked about that last week, I think, that redundant array of independent disks, right? And the server,
Right.
massive redundancy, automatic redundancy. But if you do that, and we had one of the students talk about this, you must test the backup system. I remember I went to an exercise in Hawaii one time, and I was in a concrete bunker that had been there since the beginning of the, I don't know, probably the Spanish-American War and maybe the American Revolution. Whatever it was this concrete bunker. And it had holes in it. And so we were pretending that we were under attack. And so I took a bunch of paper and I wrote on it, "This hole is filled with concrete." And I taped it to all the holes that I could see. That way, anybody that was outside, if they came in and said, "Oh, the gas leaked in through there," I said, "No, they didn't. I had it filled with concrete." Okay, I tested the backup system. I knew what we needed to do. So you need to do that. Okay, clouds, backup system. Test it. And then, here, the very last part here quickly, the multi-cloud. What in the world? Well, here's what happens. You'll remember we had the cloud, right? The big cloud. And last week we talked about micro clouds and mini clouds. Well, what you end up with is an organization that wants to have everything. And you go, what? Well, what means is that some of the people in that organization want to be hooked up to the big cloud so they can travel anywhere and do anything. Those are going to be the sales people, right? Or the customer service people or the VIP people. They want to be everywhere. But you'll have other people that just want to move around inside the city, or they just want to move around inside the building. You don't want them on here because that's outside, that's just to the outside world. So you go, wait a minute, we're going to use a micro cloud for them. Oh, wow. Okay. And so they'll have a micro cloud. They can move around anywhere inside the facility. So you have interior and exterior, and it's still cloud. And if you looked at the different cloud services, everybody had to list some of those. And we went Google, we went Microsoft, we went Apple, and everybody has one. And at this time, this was in May, Google is still the primary cloud server. But guess what? Different specializations have better different servers. And you go, what? Well, if you'll think about Apache web server, right? Apache is the world standard in web servers. It's Linux based. It's not Apple, it's not Windows. That's the standard in web servers. And so you have the same type of thing with cloud servers, different servers for different specializations. They're actually better. And that means there's actually justification for having a micro cloud on one type of servers or on a couple different servers, if it's internal, versus the generic outside exterior cloud. Okay? And you have this other thing. We've gone through software as a service. Well, there is a provider as a service, which means you just rent a specific amount of time for some particular internet provider or cloud provider, right? You can do that. And what's interesting is two of these events happened this last week. One of the students wrote to me and she said, I'm having a problem with my laptop. I can no longer use the Microsoft applications because the license expired. And I went, wow, I had exactly that same thing happen. My wife has a little laptop that she bought. One of the things that she does is genealogy consulting, and she bought this so she could do genealogy. And she came up to me and said, you need a new laptop. How about I make my old laptop your new laptop? And so she gave it to me. And when I turned it on, none of the applications worked because everything that she had on there was under the laptop purchase agreement that it would only last. It was either 1 year or 2 years, and then the license expired, so nothing was there.
Right.
Everything, okay? So what you do, if you have this provider as a service, you're paying. So it seems like just about everything can be as a service at a fee-based thing. And so I go out for free-based instead of fee-based. Okay, and one of the things that I told that student was that she could download a thing called, it's either Open Office or what is some of these here?
Yeah, open up.
LibreOffice, Libre Office. That's the that's what I use. I just had a problem with other things. Okay, so that was what I wanted to go over. I have different content, and next week is the last week. So if you have anything that you're interested in talking about, you let me know, and we can kind of focus that way next week.
Okay.
Okay, so was this interesting and fun? I hope, anyway.
Yeah, the Nash thing is interesting. I'll have to look that up more.
The which one?
The John Nash.
Okay.
Because being an accountant number, kind of enthuses me.
All right, Vicki. Well, thank you very much for coming, and I'll post this out and turn the recording off eventually, right? Here he goes. Share. Stopping share, turning recording off. That's good. Stop recording.